Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. Happy holidays. We are doing a very special episode today. We're going to do things just a little bit differently than I usually do them. Today is our holiday Festivus Ask Whatever, where you guys sent in all kinds of questions, so many questions, just about getting through the holiday season. So this episode is going to come out right before Christmas. So I hope that it's helpful. I've answered as many questions as I can where there were repeat questions because a lot of you guys sent in kind of similar things. I've kind of consolidated things to try to make it easier. But the big difference today is there are so many questions and I am so completely overwhelmed that I'm just going to answer them. We're just going to read them off and I'm going to answer them as I go, which is not the way that I normally do things around here, but that's the way we're going to try it today. So, all right, let's just get right down into it. This is our holiday Ask Whatever. So our first question today was, what is the best way to actively and accurately track your holiday meal? And I want to stop for just 1 second because I really like that because of the actively thing, because if you're not tracking as you go, you're journaling. And if you want your tracking to be as effective as it possibly can, it's definitely something you want to be doing in real time, preferably before you eat. And so this question, though, when it came in, she said, usually when I'm eating in a social situation and I'm not using measuring cups or scales and I don't know the ingredients to my food, I will take pictures of it and then track the food later, which is a great idea. She asked if that was acceptable. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. That totally works. But she feels nervous about taking pictures of everything in front of other people, which I get. She's like, I'm not taking the pictures to put them on social media. So it might seem just a little bit weird that I'm taking pictures of everything, like even a cookie. She said if she picks up a cookie, she'll take a picture of that so that she doesn't forget it. But it might seem weird to people. I don't care. I don't care if it seems weird to people. I know that you might. So if you care that it seems weird to people, you don't have to take pictures. You can make a little note of it in your phone instead, or not worry so much about it because it's just one or two things. Just do the absolute best you can. It sounds like you're very conscientious about what you're doing. So you're probably not going to derail yourself too far if you miss out on those pictures for just one or two things. But the best way to do it is just to, as you said, be as accurate and as active about it as you possibly can. Obviously, you're not going to take measuring cups with you to, Mima's house or something. So just eyeball it and do the best you can. And when you don't know what's in stuff, and I'm going to have to come back to this one because I know it came up in a few questions, punch it in like stuffing. Punch in stuffing into Google, turkey stuffing, or your whatever tracking app that you're using. Take the first 5 or so and just go with an average. Just do the absolute best you can. That's pretty much all you've got. Okay, so many questions came in about alcohol that all I've put on my sheet is just alcohol with a question mark. So the thing with alcohol over the holidays is you do want to track it. You want to try and track all of it, but that's all you can do. Plan ahead for it and track it. I know that there's this massive myth that certain alcohols are lower in calories than others. Yeah, no. I mean, sure, like the liqueurs, the creamy ones and stuff, they have more than like gin or vodka. But those ones, gin, vodka, they're all the same. Beer is pretty consistent too, and so is wine by the ounce. So if you want to drink it, plan for it and really watch the mix because that's the only place where you're going to be able to save yourself calories. The booze is all, there's no light, there's light beer, but there's no light vodka, right? Or light rye. Like they're all, unless it's bread, they're all pretty much the same. So where you're going to save yourself on your calories is in the mix that you're using, right? And you can save a lot of calories with your mix. Some of those zero drinks are amazing. I don't drink alcohol. I'm not allowed. But what did I try recently? I just tried the 7-Up Zero. I thought that would be a great mix. I know in the States right now, they've got a Shirley Temple Zero. I think it's a 7-Up too. It would be awesome. So there's lots of different things you can do. And those 0-calorie syrups that they use for coffee, I've seen a lot of people using them in mixes too. So if you're on YouTube or Instagram, there are so many accounts for low calorie drinks, alcoholic ones too. It's not really my lane, and because I can't and don't drink, I don't really know a ton about it, but that would be where I would start for sure. So yeah, just watch your mix, plan for it, and that's probably the best you can do when it comes to alcohol through the holidays. What will you eat at Christmas? Do you track? I will do one more traditional Christmas dinner with one side, and then that's my husband's side. And then on my side, because everybody's kind of Christmased out at that point with the turkey and the ham and all that stuff, we just do what we call picky bits, which is just, rounds of appetizers, and there'll be like a cheese platter and a veggie platter and that kind of thing. When it comes to eating in the holidays, it's the same for me now as it was both times I was losing my weight. I eat whatever I want, just less of it. And because I've given myself the freedom to eat whatever the fuck I feel like, I end up eating less because the pressure's gone. I know that might sound a little odd, but it's true. It's a totally different mindset than when I was over 300 pounds and I was just desperately trying to restrict myself all the time, right? Now I won't have 4 or 5 deviled eggs. I'll have 1 or 2 and I'll feel perfectly content. When I was losing weight, yes, I would track over the holidays. Now I don't. I'm in maintenance mode and I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm putting into my mouth and how many calories it's worth, etc. I've got a really solid handle on that. So I'll eat whatever I want, just less of it, the same as I have since I started losing weight all those years ago. How do you control the feelings, the wanting to eat your weight in cheeseburgers? I can't stop myself, and I'm really curious to know how you stopped when you began this journey. How do I stop wanting it? I stopped slowly. It was very gradual. I didn't try to take on everything all at once. It was more like just a steady application of the brakes than jamming on them and coming to a screeching stop. I tried to do it slowly, and I tried to take on the feelings that way too. The same way I was approaching the food with making small incremental changes, I was trying to make small incremental changes to things like my self-talk as well, the conversations I was having with myself about myself and about the food choices that I was making. I learned to distract myself as much as I could instead of doing unnecessary eating. And I don't mean distracting myself from eating, because we have to eat, you have to eat, but distracting myself from the intrusive thoughts, the food noise. I took up Sudoku puzzles. I diamond paint. There's a bunch of stuff that I do with my hands because I know that'll keep them busy. More importantly, though, if I can engage my mind away from something else, that helps to stop the food noise as well. So I'll do something that involves a lot of concentration on my part that I can't do and eat at the same time. So slowly, you're not jamming on the brakes. We're just going to come to a slow stop. That's the goal. I just transitioned to night shift work as a nurse. Do you have any suggestions for navigating such a crazy schedule of eating and sleeping? I know this one isn't holiday specific, but she led with nurse. If you've been here for a minute, you'll know that I've got more than just a slight soft spot for nurses. The support and the messages that I've gotten from my nurse flamingos. And you got to understand that when the whole almost dying thing happened, right? Yes, the doctors were superheroes, full stop, no question. But my nurses, they were with me. Like they were right there in the trenches. It's kind of like my physio team, right? There's this weird thing that happens when people save your life and when they're holding it in their hands for months on end. So yeah, I'm going to answer this one. I tend to answer all the nurse questions that come in as they come in. Okay, specific suggestions for navigating night shift work. So the first thing I would tell you is calories can't tell time. So don't stress out over that whole myth that if you eat at night, you're automatically going to gain weight. You're not. That is not, it's just not how it works. I would play with your calorie blocks. That's a strategy that I work with in my program. So take a look at when you're doing your eating and start moving the calories around based on when you're going to end up feeling the most satisfied. And I do this with people even when they eat like normal during the day. Some people find that if they have a bigger breakfast, for example, they feel more satisfied over the course of the day and they're able to balance out the calories that they have on their TDEE a little bit easier. Some people find that if, they are putting more calories into the noon meal, that midday meal, that's when they're the most satisfied. Some people need to save them for dinner or for after dinner. I would take that principle and I would apply it to the night shift. I would move your calories around and it's going to take time. It's a process that I would write down. I would keep track of it. I wouldn't try to do it off the top of my head. Move the calories around to see where you're going to feel the most satisfied. I would take a lot of high volume, low calorie options. I would work on getting used to those, figure out which ones are going to leave you feeling more satisfied. Don't turn away from the potato. It's number one on the satiety index. Take it easy on yourself. This type of a shift it's a big shift, right? It's going to be a big adjustment for your body and for you mentally. So give yourself some grace and make sure that you've got this space to feel positive about things that are happening and not just beating yourself up for the things that aren't going well. That would kind of be where I started. Actively track what you're doing so that you know when you're taking the calories in, when you're more hungry, and when you find that you need more. I'm heading home for the holidays and I want to keep losing, even slowly. How can I motivate myself to get back to tracking and mindful? Okay, so you're going to want to remind yourself of why you're doing this and remind yourself that the holidays are going to come and go every year. Where do you want to be the next time they come rolling around? What kind of conversations do you want to be having with yourself next Christmas? What do you want to look like next Christmas? What do you want your relationship with food to look like next year? Focus on those long-term goals instead of the short-term gratification. And I know that's the hardest thing in the world to do, but you do have bigger goals. This is a short period of time. The holidays are going to end. So what do you want to have going on when that happens? I know nobody wants to come out of the holidays feeling worse about themselves, right? Like, oh, great. I had all these goals laid out. I've been doing so well this year. I just gained 8 pounds over Christmas. And now I've got, another 10 weeks plus of getting this weight back off. And I've set myself back, which can lead to a lot of really negative and damaging self-talk. So don't do that. Motivate yourself with your goals, motivate yourself with what you want and what you need to have happen, and give yourself that grace. Don't be too hard on yourself this time of year. It's not helping anything. It's only going to make things worse. Never once has feeling bad about myself stopped me from eating. Feeling good about myself has. Feeling good about my choices and feeling empowered about what I'm doing and like I actually can do this, that will slow down my eating. Telling myself that I'm failing, that I'm no good, that I blew it, all of that negative language, it doesn't help. It only leads to more eating. So we're not going to do that. Motivate yourself with positivity, not with negativity. I think that's definitely the best way to go. I know somebody is going to ask about my weight and my diet. Yeah, you're probably right. Somebody probably will. So here's what I've learned. If someone is the type of person who will talk about something as delicate as weight, right? If they've got no problem with that to begin with, they're going to do that no matter what size you are. Sometimes it was the very same people who had zero issue at all with telling me that I needed to lose weight and I was getting too big and what was I thinking. Those were the same people who had no problem telling me, you're getting too skinny. What are you doing? You better be careful. And I wasn't too skinny, right? This isn't some body dysmorphia thing that, I just couldn't see how much weight I'd lost. No, I still had 30, 40, 50 more pounds to go. And there were people in my life who had no problem telling me that I was too thin, I looked sick, I needed to stop what I was doing. Some of those people were the exact same people who had no problem telling me that I was way too big, I was super unhealthy, whatever narrative they decided to go with. These people are never going to be happy. Some people aren't going to like the way that you're losing weight. Some of these people will be the same people who told you that you needed to lose weight in the first place. And, I don't know how you're losing your weight, but it doesn't make a difference because I do know that no matter how you're losing it, there is somebody out there who is going to have a problem with it. There are people out there who can find a problem with anything. I lost my weight in a way that was incomprehensible to pretty much everybody at that moment in time. It's incomprehensible to a lot of people now. I lost the 201 pounds in an age where people were obsessed with breakfast, with lots of small meals. Nobody could eat after 6. So I had a lot of fun getting to tell people that I was losing weight by eating whatever I wanted, but only eating at night. People called me a liar to my face. They told me I was crazy, that I would never get it all off that way, that maybe I'd get some of it off, but I'd never keep it off. Weight loss invites a lot of opinions. You don't have to talk about it. You don't. Saying thank you and smiling is an answer. There's a clip of the Olsen sisters, the Olsen twins, and they're on, I think it's Letterman, and they're telling him that saying no is a full sentence. Are you taking Ozempic? No. Are you starving all the time? No. Do you know when you'll have all your weight off? No. No is a complete sentence. I hate blanket advice in situations like this because my answer to how do you cope with these people talking about your weight, it all depends on who you're talking to and what that relationship looks like, and whether or not you have a close relationship with the person who's bringing it up, or if they're just a peripheral person in your life. Like, will your mother hear about it if you get snarky with cousin Gladys? I have a lot of questions before I can address this situation, because I don't think it's as cut and dry as like, just set a boundary with the toxic person. Ugh. Part of the deal with toxic people is that they don't respect boundaries. And part of the deal with the holidays is that they're sometimes filled with toxic people who you're stuck with long term, whether or not you dig in. So it's not simple. It's almost never straightforward in these situations. I talked about this one a lot last week. I did the full episode on holiday sabotage, like saboteurs, the people who try to screw with you over the holidays. So I would send you back to episode 79, because I think that one would really help with this one more. I won't go into it too much because we're not even halfway through these questions yet. So I'm going to leave it there, but definitely check out last week's answer on that one for what to do when people are talking to you about your weight over the holidays. I'm not going to know the calories of what I'm eating. What do I do? Okay, no problem. You want to treat this the same way you would any other time that you don't know precisely what the calorie count is with something. You do your best and you ballpark it. That's all you can do. If you're not sure what the calorie count is of Aunt Janet's fruitcake, no problem. Punch fruitcake into your app and take an average of the top 5. Just do your best. Don't obsess over it. Don't stress yourself out over, tracking somebody down and getting the recipe to load it. No, don't waste your time with any of that stuff, and don't stress yourself out over any of that. Pick an average and go with it. Now, don't always default to the lowest ones. I had a horrible tendency of doing that, being like, oh, chicken wings. Well, that chicken wing says it's only 110 calories and that one's 180. So I'm always going to pick 110. That's a bit of a slippery slope. Go with an average and just do the best that you can with what you've got. That's the only answer that you've got here. Should I eat before I go to the party? No. I don't like this strategy. Pre-eating, which is what I call that, pre-eating is sabotage. It just is. You say, you know what? I'm going to eat before I go so I won't be tempted when I get there. Yeah, okay. When was the last time that worked? Because you end up eating twice as much. That's what happens. I also really don't like the undertones of shame that come along with pre-eating. I think that's a big psychological trigger for a lot of us. And I could totally just be projecting here, because I would pre-eat if I had something that I had to go to, if I had a big event, in particular, if there were like strangers there or people that I didn't really know, because I had a thing about anybody seeing me eat when I was fat. Anybody. I went to extreme lengths so that nobody outside of a very, very small handful of people ever saw me eating when I was that big, because it made me deeply uncomfortable. But sitting in your car, eating whatever you got from the drive-through in hopes that you'll eat less at the party, it kind of smacks of shame, and I don't like that. Even if you're tracking it, and I understand the emotions behind all of that really, really well. I was the fat girl who didn't want anybody watching me eat because I was sure that they were thinking something, or they were going to say something, or somebody was judging me, and sometimes people did. Yeah, I learned that lesson early and I just couldn't do it. But no, don't hide. Don't hide to eat. You don't need to pre-eat. Eat within your calories when you get there. I think it's far more valuable to practice using that tool than it is to just cut off the option of eating altogether. You can't stop eating. Well, you can't stop eating at all. And you certainly don't want to be in a position where you're no longer eating socially. Yeah, no, don't. We're not going to pre-eat before we go to the party. We're not going to do that. What about when you're maintaining your weight? That's a great question. I know a lot more of you who are maintaining are listening in now, and I think that's awesome because maintenance mode is its own kettle of kittens. When you're maintaining through the holidays, keep going, do the best you can. Depending on how long you've been maintaining, you might feel safer if you have a safety net in place for yourself and you track over the holidays, at least a little bit, just so that you have a gauge of how far over you're going or whether you're staying within your calories so you don't end up with surprises. I would stay on top of it that way. Watch your self-talk. You know what to do. You know how to get through these holidays. If it's your first one at your maintenance weight, I understand how scary that can be. It can feel pretty terrifying, right? Because if the holidays are a time where you normally gain weight, this is your first holiday where you're at the weight that you want to be and you want to stay there. Track. Make sure that you're staying at your maintenance TDEE. If that's something that you're nervous about, you can absolutely pull that tool belt back out and just go for it. Don't bury your head in the sand when it comes to the scale. You want to know what's going on. As scary as that can be, you want to know what's going on. Watch your liquid calories. All my usual advice would apply there. And just relax. Don't beat yourself up. Have a good time. Enjoy the fact that you've made it to this holiday season at your goal weight and you know what you want to do. You want to stay there. So keep that front of mind and enjoy your holidays. I can't bear it. You eat and they're judging you. You stop and probably micromanage your intake. And guess what? You're being criticized again. Yeah, there's no winning. There's no winning. Some people are going to criticize you regardless of what you do. People are going to judge you regardless of what you do. You have to let that part go. I know it's hard. I know it sucks. Try and turn a blind eye to it as much as you possibly can. But the reality is you're not going to make everybody happy. I was just talking about how some of the people who were the most critical of me at my heaviest became the most critical of me at my thinnest. So you just can't win. You're doing this for yourself. Keep doing it for yourself and forget about the Gladyses. Just let Gladys be Gladys because she's just going to keep on doing her thing anyway. And there isn't a damn thing that you can do about it. So focus, eyes forward, just keep going. And last week, the whole episode about people like this, episode 79, give that one a listen. I think it'll help. I always feel so down and discouraged this time of year. It just makes me want to eat more. Yeah, I hear you. It's hard. It's really hard. There are so many feelings going on. There's so much happening emotionally. It's busy or it's not busy. Both of those things. This is the time of year where there's a lot of double-edged swords on the go, right? I think when you're in that space where you're feeling low and you're discouraged and you're feeling like you just want to eat all the food, try and do something to cheer yourself up a little bit that isn't food. And I know that's hard and I know that's easier said than done. What else can you turn to bring something positive into your space mentally in this moment instead of just fixating on food? Have better options. Stick with the high volume, lower calorie choices. Eat whatever you want, just less of it. Again, bacon and bubblegum, people, it does not matter what you eat so long as you're in a deficit. But when you're feeling low and you're feeling down, depending on how low you're feeling, you can always talk to somebody. There's nothing wrong with reaching out for help. Your family doctor would be a good place to start. Depending on where you are, you might have access to a free counselor. Some places have 1-800 hotlines that you can call to speak with someone if you're feeling lonely and discouraged. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to talk to other people and let them know what's going on with you. And do the best that you can to stay as positive as you can without slipping into toxic positivity. Sometimes if you have a reason to be upset, let yourself be upset. But if you're feeling low and you're looking for help, please reach out. There's no shame in asking for help. I have sought out counseling at multiple points in my life. And it was some of the best decisions I ever made were getting help to deal with what was happening mentally when I was feeling down and discouraged. So please don't be afraid to reach out for help. I loved this question. This is one of my favorite questions I've gotten, actually. I'd never thought about it this way until it was phrased this way. So I really enjoyed it. Is there a way to know which stuff is higher in calories? I don't want to ask what's in everything. So how do I tell? Oh, that's a great question. Okay. Unless someone is like me and they're hacking recipes all the time, because I like to keep things that are creamy and rich. I just find a way to do it with lower calories. If it's creamy and rich, it's probably higher in calories. If it has a cream sauce, if it has a lot of cheese on it, cured meats, all of that stuff is higher in calories. So if it's like a beautiful broccoli dish laid out, but you can see that that broccoli is laying there in a sea of like a beautiful white cream sauce, it's high calorie. It's high calorie. Those desserts that are dipped in chocolate, oh yeah. Yeah, no, they're higher in calories. Things that you can't see are things like butter, which it's 100 calories a tablespoon, so it's very high in calories. The richer something is, the creamier something is, higher in calories. Yeah, that's a great question because it can be really hard to tell. And food, those calories can be sneaky little things. Like you're like, oh, look, it's just a lovely plate of green beans. Yeah, but those green beans are in a butter sauce that just tacked 200 calories onto your day. So there's that. When you can't ask questions, just do your level best. That's really all you can do. But things like sauces are usually a pretty good giveaway. Anything that looks creamy, chocolatey, those types of things, those are pretty good indicators. This one came in not in the form of a question. It's just like a 4-word sentence. But in those 4 words, she conveyed more than enough. So all that came in the DM was, it's the baking, Charlotte. Yeah, I hear you. It's the baking. I know. And there were a lot of questions that came in on the baking theme. People who like to bake with their children or with their grandchildren. They have family traditions that are all around being in the kitchen and everybody bakes together and you do this huge cookie exchange and all the things. I know, it's hard. Have the baking, just less of it. Give the baking away. Get the baking. Get the baking gone. Just get rid of it. Get it out of the house. Give it away. Everybody wants to give it away this time of year. Have a little bit of it. Give the rest away. And you can hack as much of the baking as you can. I know it's too late because of when this episode is coming out, but I will plug my cookbook. It is filled with low-calorie baking recipes and desserts and sweets. And I've got a second cookbook coming out in the new year that will have more desserts and baking and sweets in it. Actually, no baking because this is my no oven cookbook, but it'll have lots of sweets and desserts in it. Yeah, baking can be lethal. Track it. Have it so that you don't end up feeling deprived or driving yourself crazy and then you end up scarfing down the entire tin of shortbread. We don't want to do that. Have a couple instead, but be really present with them. Be really mindful about it. Enjoy the baking. Don't eat the baking while, you've still got the whole kitchen left to clean and you're just going to grab a cookie and shove it in while you go to the closet to get the broom to start in on the floors. That is not the time. That is a total waste. Enjoy the baking. Really appreciate it. Sit with it. Pay attention to how it feels in your mouth, what it smells like, what it tastes like. The more you remember about the experience of the food, the less likely you are to go reaching for more of it later because you feel more satisfied overall. So that would be my advice. Have the baking, enjoy the baking. And if it's the tradition of the baking together, it's the together, right? It's the getting together with those people once a year to see. Now I'm thinking about my grandma and okay. Yeah. It's the baking. Really hold on to the people. It's that time in the kitchen together. The last year, my dad was with us. We didn't know it was his last Christmas. We had no idea. But that year he and my mom taught myself and my sister-in-law how to make the family fruitcake recipe. And incidentally, that fruitcake is known as Aunt Janet because my ancestor Janet, this recipe's been in our family since I think the late 1700s, like 1785 or something. And we always make this fruitcake. And I had never made it before, but the winter before he died, my dad right before Christmas, taught Sonia and I how to make it. And I actually still have some of that fruitcake in my freezer. And that's kind of a funny family story because we, like everybody else, you wrap it up in the wax paper and then you wrap it again in aluminum foil. So in my family, we all just have these little bricks of aluminum foil in our freezers. And you'd holler out and say, could somebody go grab a bit of Aunt Janet out of the freezer? Meaning, could somebody go get some fruitcake? So we have all these little aluminum foil blocks in our freezers labeled Aunt Janet, which might raise some questions if anybody ever had to clean out our freezers. Cling to those traditions, enjoy those traditions. But it's not the food that matters. It's not the fruitcake or the cookies or any of it that's the important part. So I would enjoy the baking, the act of it, and then enjoy your cookies and stuff too, just less of them. I started losing weight this year, and then a family member. Now, this question was super specific. So I just cut some stuff right out, and we're going to pretend that she said stepsister. That's the one that I've chosen. I don't have a stepsister, so nobody in my life can be accused of anything. We're going to roll on stepsister. That's not what she said, but it was really specific. So I'm just going to take all the specific stuff out of this one. Okay. I started losing weight this year, and my stepsister started losing weight too. I was always the big one, and I don't think that she could handle. Okay, I get what she's saying there. Now, I was always the big one, and I don't think she can handle that I'm losing my weight. I'm sure that she's taking. Now, I'm just gonna say GLP-1. We're not gonna go with the specific one here. So she's taking an injectable, but she swears that she's not. And my mother says it's none of my business and it doesn't matter, but she's losing her weight way faster than me. We're going to say pissed off and jealous. And I know I'll be better off in the long run, but I don't even want to see her. And I'm afraid I'm going to say something. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And you're not alone. You're not alone. This is something, all joking aside, this is something that a lot of people are having to deal with. I'm having a lot of conversations about this. Someone is losing their weight through diet or through diet and exercise, and then someone close to them starts losing their weight with, an Ozempic or a Wegovy or one of these medications, and they're having tremendous success. Your success is slower. It's the tortoise and the hare thing again. It is really frustrating. It brings up a lot of very big feelings, and it can definitely be the cause of some interpersonal issues there. Your mom is kind of right. It really isn't any of your business. And if she's not going to share with you what she's doing, there's really nothing you can do about that either. What she does, though, isn't about you, even when it feels like it's about you. It's about her. Hold on to that feeling like you're going to be better off in the long run. Bite your tongue as much as you possibly can, because you have to ask yourself the question whenever you're in one of these situations with somebody, to what end? If I cause a scene right now and I make her admit that she's losing her weight through injectables and that's why she's dropping weight so much faster than I am, what are you going to get out of that? Like, what's the payout? You get to humiliate her publicly. That could backfire, right? Because now you look like the jerk. Here's the thing. If you think that she's using injectables, so does everybody else. Okay. If she's dropping 5+ pounds, 3+ pounds a week, people know. People know. So hold on to that knowledge. And I don't know, maybe have the self-satisfaction of looking at her and going, yeah, I see what you're doing. So does everybody else. Keep lying. You keep doing you. And then you just keep doing you too, because you're doing really well. Every time you go to say something, just think to yourself, everybody already knows. I don't have to say anything. They all know. Everybody's holding their tongue too. Everybody already knows. My mom died, and this is my first Christmas without her. Firsts are really hard when we lose someone close to us. I'm very fortunate I still have my mom. I'm really sorry that you don't. But I lost my dad. And our our first I lost my dad right before I got sick. So my dad died, and then 6 weeks later, I was on a helicopter, and then I spent 5 months in the hospital fighting for my life. And because I was pregnant when my dad died, I really didn't, I was told not to process it. And I'm not blaming anybody. That was, um, many people felt that way, that if I gave into the grief, it could be damaging. I think I was 5 months pregnant when my dad died. So I didn't process it. And then I got so sick that there was no processing anything. But yeah, sorry, this isn't about me. Firsts are really hard. Don't expect it to be easy. That's probably not the advice I should be giving. Let yourself be sad. Let yourself feel sad. Try to keep going, because if you don't keep going this year, it'll be even harder next year. I was very fortunate. I had 3 little boys. I had my nephew. So for the sake of the grandkids, we really wanted to make sure everything was as normal as we could possibly make it. The first Christmas without my dad, we did things to commemorate him. The children all got a special angel Christmas ornament from my father that year. We had some of the fruitcake. I gave my dad really liked cheese, so I got each of our houses a cheese board with my dad's initials cut into it. They do that in the wood. So I did things to try and make a new tradition moving forward without him, which was very difficult. But I want to make sure that he's with us at every holiday, and I'm sure you'll want to make sure your mom is with you at yours. So those things that were special to him at Christmas, I kept them going as best I could. My brother and I always get the same gift for my mom at Christmas that my dad used to buy her. We just try to keep his memory alive as best as we can. Give yourself lots of grace. Don't be hard on yourself. This is going to be hard enough without you beating yourself up on top of it. Just do the best that you can. I'm sure you'll be worried about food and all the different triggers. Do your best. You know what to do. All the rules apply, right? Eat whatever you want, just less of it. Keep your water intake up. Just take care of yourself. Do your best. That's I don't know. That's maybe horrible advice. But that's what I've got. So, but don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself space to grieve, because all of that year of firsts, they all bring it all back up. At least they did for me. Maybe not for everybody, but all of those firsts for the first year were just, every time you have to go through something without them again, it feels like a big old scab getting ripped off. So give yourself lots of grace. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and I really don't want to offend anyone, but I don't want to gain weight either. It's okay. I know that navigating these things can be hard, really hard, because there's Christmas and there's food and there's traditions, and all of these things just get, you don't love me if you won't eat a second helping of my pie. I know it's really tough. Do your best to not offend anyone. The less said is usually the better. Have a little bit so you don't end up having a lot. I did 2 episodes on the holidays back in my series of 9 things that had a lot of specific tips to help with this one as well. People aren't going to be as offended as you think they are. People aren't paying as much attention to you as you think they are. Yeah. What's that old saying that they always attribute to like Mark Twain and Eleanor Roosevelt? But they can't figure out who is it. If you knew how often other people actually thought about you, you wouldn't worry so much. That one, it's not those exact words, but you know the ones I mean. Everybody's too busy worrying about themselves over Christmas to be worried about you. Just keep going. It's going to be fine. My sister always tells me that I should just eat whatever I want because it's Christmas, that it's okay to indulge myself. I tried telling her that's not helpful, but she said she's not trying to be helpful and that I suffer all year, so I should cut loose now. I think she just doesn't want to be the only one eating a ton. Okay. Yeah, I hear that. I don't have a sister. I understand that it can be a very interesting dynamic, though. Yeah, that's a tough one to navigate. You could be right. Maybe she just doesn't want to be the only one eating a ton, and that's okay. You can reassure her a little bit that your relationship isn't changing even though you're losing weight, because it sounds like that might be part of the problem. You can tell her that you do feel like you indulge yourself because you eat whatever you want, just less of it. So no, you don't feel like you're deprived all year long, and that you understand that she doesn't want to be helpful, but it would be more helpful if she could support you right now. That's what you need. Tell her what you need from her. And if she can't give that to you, that's fine. But that also doesn't mean that you have to do things her way. It's okay to stick up for yourself and to do things your way. It really is. So give yourself the permission to stand your ground with her and do what you need to do for yourself. It's not about her. It's your body. It's your relationship with food and your relationship with yourself and with your weight. I'm sorry that she feels that she gets a say in that. She does not. So, yeah. What about the food noise? I said no to the donuts, the pies, the chocolate, etc., but they are there all day and all evening. Even if I leave without eating anything, I still wish I had leftovers. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't have a cure-all for food noise, and I don't know anybody who does. Cope with. You can distract yourself from it. You can try to avoid it. You can try to work with it. You can continue to remind yourself, have the other side of that conversation with the food noise. Donuts, 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 donuts. I've had donuts. I've had lots of donuts. I don't want a donut right now. I want to work on getting healthier. I have a goal of getting 5 pounds off by the end of January. That's what I'm going to focus on instead. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with wishing for something, right? You don't actually have the thing. So you can wish that you had the leftovers, but you don't have them, which is, I think, the smarter choice there. Don't bring the food home if you don't want to eat it. And I understand that you do want to eat it, but you don't want to eat it at the same time. The big thing I would do would be to congratulate yourself at this point, honestly, on the win. I mean, sure, you're not beating back the food noise, but that's everybody. You said no to the donuts, the pies, the chocolates, and the etc. That's a pretty significant win. That's a huge win, actually. You also said no to the leftovers. So I would be spending some time patting myself on the back right now. That's how I'd approach that, and building yourself up, because you're doing extremely well. You need to keep that going, and you're going to get where you want to go. So applaud yourself. That's what I would do. It's just sit there giving yourself a standing ovation and tell the food noise to go fuck itself, because you've got this. I sometimes feel sad that I can't eat my whole plate worth of food because I'm full. Is there a way I can avoid that? Yes. And I'm not being glib here. I'm sincerely answering this question. Put less food on your plate. Use a smaller plate. I would try both of those strategies just as something very concrete that you can do. I have an abstract answer to this question as well, and we're going to get there. But yes, if you're feeling sad because you can't clear your plate, and I'm leaning in because I really do understand that feeling very, very well. I was a plate clearer for a long time, and it took me years to stop clearing my plate without feeling guilty or bad or sad or some sort of an emotion about it. We know, for example, if you switch from using a 12-inch plate to a 10-inch plate, people eat on average 22% less. So you can start with a smaller portion and eat all of it. And then you get that feeling of being satisfied because you've had it all. And I go toe to toe with the Gladyses on this one all the time. I reposted that brownie thing, and they're losing it again over who would ever eat a whole pan. Lots of people. Lots of us need to eat all of it in order to feel satisfied. So what I would recommend in a very concrete sense is start with less. Start with a plate that has less food on it so that you can eat the whole thing without feeling overfull and without triggering those feelings of sadness, because what you're feeling is totally valid. And anyone who tells you that it's not valid, just tell them where to go. Seriously, I'm sorry, I should not have done that vulgar gesture. But seriously, just tell them, thanks, and just stop listening, because they're wrong. It makes total sense. When you're losing a lot of weight, part of it is that you have to grieve the relationship that you had with food, right? When food has been your best friend, when food has been the thing that you have always turned to for, comfort, reward, and cope, those three bells that I keep ringing. When food is always giving you those three things and suddenly you can't use it in the same way, it does cause sadness, deep sadness. I think it's a full-on grieving process. So it is 100% okay that you're feeling that, but tangibly the way to avoid it is to put less food on your plate or use a smaller plate, and then emotionally let yourself have it. It's okay to feel sad. You're grieving the relationship that you had with food and you're working towards building a new one. So yeah, don't feel bad. I wouldn't even worry. I get you want to avoid it. You kind of have to feel it a little bit or you just end up back where you were. So it's 3A way. You're aware that what you're feeling is sad because you couldn't finish the plate because you're full and you wish you could eat more. No problem. We're acknowledging it, right? Oh shit. I'm upset right now. I'm upset because I can't clear this off. That's good. The accountability is not forcing yourself to eat it and not pushing that feeling down and just, shoving it away because you're just going to end up eating it later. That's what happens when we push our feelings down. But just going, yeah, you know what? It is. Things are changing. My relationship with food is changing. I can't eat all this food anymore. I'm going to have to rework the way I'm coming at this. Yeah. How do I plan ahead if I don't know what's being served? You can't. Sorry. I know I get questions like this because I often advocate tracking ahead of time. For example, if you're a diabetic who has to have a specific snack at the end of every day to keep your blood sugars as regulated as possible through the evening, I will tell people who work with me, we'll track that snack in the morning and spend your day acting like those calories are spent because they are. You can't plan ahead in that regard when you don't know what's being served. So all you can do is have as many calories going into the meal as you can. So have a lovely high volume, low calorie breakfast or lunch or whatever is coming up before it. Make sure that you're well hydrated. We so often confuse thirst for hunger. We're like, oh, I'm so hungry. You're not, you're thirsty. Try having a drink first, have some water. Make sure you're getting all of your water in for that day would be my advice. And then just do the best you can. When the food is laid out in front of you, make the best possible choices that you can. And enjoy yourself. Have a good time. It's the holidays. That's the whole point. I'm hosting my whole family, and I know I'm going to get stuck with the leftovers. Yeah, that's tough. Freeze as much as you can for later. Make up individual TV tray dinners. I got a bunch of those ones, they're just plastic. They've got little compartments. Put some turkey in here and here. Individual meals so that you don't have the whole thing. And I mean, if you want to get really plan aheady with them, you can mark your calories on the top of the tub so that oh, hey, look, this TV dinner I made is 700 calories, 900 calories, 300 calories, whatever the fuck it is. I would go that route. Give away as much as you can. Okay, so your family won't take the leftovers. Have you got an elderly neighbor? Is there someone who lives on your street who's spending the holidays alone for the first time? Is there somebody in your building whose kids got stuck at the airport and couldn't make it and now she's all alone? Like, there are other ways. There are other ways to get rid of food than eating it. If you can't give it away, if there are no neighbors, if there's nobody in your church group, if there's no one who can take all of the good food, pack it up, freeze it. Pack up as much of it as you can and freeze it. That, I think, is kind of the best way to go there. And worst case scenario, throw it out. I know. And the email, I can hear the Gladyses in the distance. I can already hear them typing away. Throw it out. Throw it out. Your health is more valuable than the cost of any food. Also, and I know the food waste argument with there are hungry people all around the world. Yes, there are, but you have cooked that food. No one else could have bought it. No one else can have it at this point. It's in your home. So whether you eat it or you don't will have no bearing at all on the state of global food insecurity, unless you take that food and find someone that you can give it to now. But yeah, let go of the guilt. Let go of all of that other stuff that, oh, I got to eat it because there are hungry people. No, you don't. No, you don't. There are other ways to do it. Your health needs to come first. My family is all about food at holiday gatherings. Yeah, I think most of our families are. I think that's pretty normal. Pies, casseroles, everything. I always feel like I have no self-control. How do I get through this? You do have self-control, even when it feels like you don't. I would say, remember that self-control it's not a switch that just gets flipped. Like you wake up one morning and you're like, ta-da, I have self-control. No, it doesn't happen like that. Self-control is a whole bunch of little actions. It's all these little micro decisions that lead up to it. It's not one big sweeping thing, right? It takes tiny amounts, little bits of self-control at all these different stages. Yeah, food and the holidays they go hand in hand. That's what it's all about. And I understand feeling like you have no self-control. You do have self-control, and you can have a plan in place to get yourself through this. Maybe if your family has like you're saying, pies and casseroles, okay, have some of it. Just have less of it. Do the best that you can to stay within your tracking, and tell yourself, I have self-control. I can do this. Because I'll tell you right now, sitting there going, I have no self-control. Well, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That's a snake that's just going to keep eating its own tail. Because at the same time that you're excusing away your behavior, you're also giving yourself permission to continue. You do have self-control. You might only have a small amount of it in certain situations, but there's some. I mean, if you didn't have self-control, you'd snatch all the pies and casserole dishes and just sit there with them around a table. But you're not doing that, I'm assuming. So you do have self-control. You just need to make incremental changes to it to just level it up a little bit and a little bit more. Last Christmas, I told myself I wasn't going to go overboard, and then I ate so much I almost puked. I don't want to do that this year. Yeah, that's fair. I've been there. I know how it feels. And I know it doesn't feel very good. And there's the physical not feeling good. And then there's all the mental stuff like, oh my God, I can't believe I ate this much. Everybody saw all of that shit. You're going to do better this year. You've got the first two steps of the 3A way down pat, right? You've got it. You're aware of what happened last year. You're aware of the problem, and you've acknowledged it because you've reached out, you've articulated it, and now your accountability, you don't want to do that again. Okay, you're not going to. This year's going to be different. If only by virtue of the fact that your awareness of what happened last year and your desire to change it has already changed it. It's already on a different trajectory than it would have been if you were just merrily marching along. I don't know what happened last year. You do know what happened last year, and you're not happy about it. That tells me that you're going to do something about it this year. Self-restraint. Tell yourself you can have whatever you want, just less of it. Don't try to do the deprivation thing. Smaller helpings, smaller portions, smaller plates without deprivation. I've got 3 parties this weekend. How do I not eat nonstop and not feel rude? Yeah, it's tough. Tell people the truth. Honestly, that's the best way to go. Don't make something up. Your reason is enough. The reason that you have is more than enough. Hey guys, I'm sorry I can't load up my plate right now. I got another party after this. I just came from one. I got another party tomorrow. Whatever. Tell people the truth. Tell them the truth. And you feeling rude is going to most likely be more of a you thing than a them thing. So try not to worry about it too much. People aren't thinking about it. Nobody is paying as much attention to what you're eating as you think they are. I'm struggling. I need to lose, but my husband needs to gain. I'm the only cook in the house. I try to meal prep for him, and I find that I'm not getting what I need. I'm an emotional eater and an overeater. How did you put yourself first? How do you balance your cabinets for your family? She says, if I don't plan or if I don't make and plan meals for my family, they eat junk and takeout. And she just wants to be the one. No, I just want to not have to be the one for everyone. I feel that. Carrying the emotional load is heavy and it's hard. And I do it too. It can be really tough to coordinate your meals plus everybody else's when you're eating something different. It can be very difficult to balance those two things. I keep a very loose meal plan going. So on any week, basically, I have 3 nights of the week that are covered. Okay. One's breakfast, one's pasta, one's rice, because there's so much variation in those 3 things. And then my other meals are built around leftovers and what I've got in the fridge and what was on sale at the grocery store. I balance my cabinets. Most of the stuff is for my family. And then like all my sugar-free products, for example, I keep those in a separate basket in the fridge so that the boys don't accidentally eat one of my puddings instead of one of theirs or whatever. They wouldn't eat very much of it. Well, the pudding, not so much, but some of those fruit cups that have no sugar, that's definitely not what they're used to. It's hard when you don't want to be the one to have to do everything for everybody else, but you are that person. I don't have a solution for that. It drives me nuts too. It's very difficult. It's very hard to balance. I think I've said this 15 times today, but do your best. Do the best you can. If he's not willing to get on board, it's that much harder. Yeah, I'm not an expert on getting people to gain weight. I know there are things that you can do to help him with that. And I'm sure you've Googled it and looked at, things like taking full fat yogurts and adding them to smoothies and things to help him to bulk up. Dairy can be a really good way to do that because it's so fat dense and it's so calorie dense that can help. And then you have the opposite issue where you're looking for non-calorie dense solutions, right? It's tough. It's really hard to put yourself first. Something that I do is I'll tell myself, well, if I can't function, none of this functions, right? If you don't take care of yourself, the whole house of cards is going to crumble because you're the one holding it up. So you have to prioritize. Prioritizing yourself is prioritizing your family. It's that, and I know everybody's sick of it now, but it was revolutionary when we first started hearing it, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. This is one of those moments. Fill your cup. You have to. Or the oxygen mask thing, right? You always put your own on first before your kids because you can't help anybody if you can't breathe. You can't help anybody if you can't breathe. Take care of yourself. You deserve it just as much as your husband and your kids do. How do I manage wanting all the things when I don't have the calories for it? That's the question, right? You do the best you can to plan ahead. You try to make sure that you have the calories for the things that you want to have the most. You don't eat the things that you don't want because you're wasting calories on those things when there are things that you do want. When you want all the things, you're probably going to have to make some choices. You're going to have to prioritize. And again, do the best you can to stay within your calories for the day. And throughout the holidays, there's nothing wrong with eating at maintenance, right? Throw those 500 calories back on so that, no, maybe you're not going to lose weight over the holidays, but you're not going to gain weight either. So maybe something that I would do would be to add some calories back in. Give yourself those 500 calories back as a Christmas present and just be like, okay, well, I can't have all of everything. But because I've got these calories back and because of the way that I'm managing my calories overall, I can have some of the things, or I can have a little bit of all of the things. That would be another way to come at it. What do you do the day after a binge? Do you eat less and work out a little more? Okay, first of all, I never work out a little more. We do not work out to earn food. I don't do that. That is not, no, that's not. No, not how that goes. So definitely no, not working out a little more. Moving more, I'm not going to lie to you. No, I'd like to be the person who could sit here and be like, yes, I go for a lovely brisk walk. I don't. I should, but I don't. If you can and you want to, go for it. The day after a binge, I try not to beat myself up. Do I eat less? I'll eat less than I did with the food binge. Yeah, absolutely. I won't starve myself though. I'll make sure that I have what I need. It might be a day where I'm like, oh, I don't feel well because I ate so much. And I haven't done that in a very, very long time. I might switch to like a broth-based soup, something that is going to be easier on my system just to help my system deal with all that extra food. So in that sense, I might eat less. I'll make sure I'm getting all of my water. I'll make sure I'm not beating myself up. Have I mentioned that one yet? It's not going to help. It's just going to result in a binge by 10 o'clock that night. Yeah, that's kind of how water, lots of water. You got to clear all that salt out. Because if I go on a food bender, my salt intake was off the charts. So I got to flush that out. Yeah, that's kind of how I'd go about that one. Take care of yourself and remind yourself of why you're doing this. Don't keep that front of mind. Don't let that ever slip too far from your grasp. We get so caught up in these, what we deem as failures, right? That we don't keep our eye on what we're actually trying to achieve and on what we already have achieved. One binge doesn't erase all of the work that you've done. A bad holiday season doesn't erase an entire year of hard work. You don't have to worry about that. Don't stop thinking about it in those terms. I am back next week. We're doing another brand new episode. And next week, because it's going to come out on the 30th, so I wanted to do an episode all about what I would do if I was starting on New Year's Day. So that is what we're going to cover. And it's not a negative one. I know you guys all know how I feel about the whole New Year's resolution thing with weight. No, I'm not slamming it anymore. We are meeting ourselves where we are. And if we're starting on New Year's Day, here's how I would go about it. So that's coming up for you next week. If you still need a last minute Christmas gift for yourself, I don't like plugging stuff, but I'm going to. I've got a cookbook, a weight loss workbook. I now have a brand new monthly membership where you can come join me on my own private social media platform where I have a whole accountability community and access to all of my content that's fully searchable. Oh, and you get access to me because I do at least 2 live calls a week where anyone can join and we chat and break down recipes and do all kinds of fun stuff. So if you'd like to join me, that's my membership hub. We're going to drop all of the information into the show notes. There's also always my program, my 53-week long, fully immersive weight loss experience. It is still available. I have not taken that down or made it go away or anything because the holidays are here. In the meantime, I hope you all have an absolutely amazing holiday season. Reach out for anything you need. Keep trying, keep tracking. Don't be intimidated and don't give up. You've totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.